I think my brief today is obviously to help also facilitate Q&A on the topic of, why it's important to build IoT in Africa. So first, I want to just talk about the finance level, okay? At the end of the day, you're building electronics to solve a problem. You're charging customers for what you've offered and what you've solved for them. They're paying you. And the question becomes, okay, now, how is the customer able to afford what you do? Did they pay cash for it? Great, congratulations. Was it necessary to put it on a financing arrangement and therefore pay-go? And what did that mean for your business, yourselves, your financiers, maybe your own lenders, and your investors? So I can tell you in this industry now, this is the industry that we contribute to and participate in. We call it the off-grid industry. It's also called asset financing, productive use asset financing. And when you build your hardware, and this industry tends to build its hardware in places like China, then that product has to get built. There was a down payment from the manufacturer that gets put on a boat, and it makes its way here, and then it makes its way into the field, and then the customer makes that down payment, the end user, and they're going to pay it off over 3, 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years. Just that initial part, before there was ever even a down payment from the customer, you are looking at 6 months of work, and this is pre-pandemic numbers, by the way. We'll talk about post-pandemic in a moment. 6 months of that product getting built in the factory in China, being loaded onto a boat, and making its way here. And there's warehousing and all this in between at each step. That is time that still required your own working capital provider to lay out and accept risk of now inventory risk and all the things that could go wrong in that journey. And that's all time they're expecting to get paid back for as well, by way of interest. So 6 months now plus maybe your 1 year loan to the customer, maybe now that's a 1.5 year working capital cycle. That's a long time. And that's time that time is money, by way of interest. So now when we look at building here, part of the problems you're solving is you're shaving off that extra lead time. Okay, that's a really important improvement to your own working capital cycle. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, when you sell as an entrepreneur to end users, you don't know what volume they will demand. You don't know how many units, once you launch your marketing campaign, you do an online campaign, you go out to the field and do demos, you send agents all out there. You don't know how many customers finally are going to purchase your product. So now imagine you have to make these forecasts in advance. You have to organize this party, get all the stakeholders to the table. You've got the lender, you've got the suppliers, maybe you have some raw materials involved, and you're now trying to synchronize them. And you don't know finally how much the customers will purchase. So either you are way over ordering and you maybe got too much in terms of loans or investment that are also expecting returns. And finally, the customer demand is much lower than you anticipated. Well, now you're sitting on a lot of inventory that you can't do much with, and you might have to sell for scrap at a much, maybe did you get 10% of that value of what you put into it? Did you take a loss of 90% on this? That wouldn't be surprising for a lot of, new product inventory if it had to be scrapped. Flip side, the demand is much higher than you expected. So you sell out, yay, you have a nice story to tell. You're oversubscribed, congratulations. But now you've left a lot of money on the table. There was a lot of demand that you could have satisfied and earned more money for yourselves, for your businesses, for your investors and lenders, that now is maybe opportunity for someone else to come in, a competitor, to come fill in alongside you. They see this oversubscribed demand in their own way and they come in and compete with you now. You've helped breed new competitors to yourself. So there's no magic solution to know exactly what the demand is, but When you build locally, what you're able to do is, as you sense more demand, you have more orders from the customers, more inbound leads. You can now order locally to get the product built. You can engage, Europlacer, you can engage local suppliers and raw materials and whatnot to put those together, add your value, and then ship that to meet that demand. In a much faster cycle, perhaps weeks, perhaps days, let's say weeks, rather than having to put that order over into China and you had to meet a minimum order quantity of 10,000 units, get that all packed into a container, shipped 6 months over to here, and then maybe you have an idea of what your real demand was finally. You should have done lean testing, by the way, before this, lean market testing, to get a sense of it. But you don't know what people were really able to pay until you've actually got the product here and they're ready to follow through. Reason number 3 now, and this exists less at your individual interest level, but at a broader ecosystem level, is, so let's pretend you're Minister of Industry hats on for a moment. When you just buy innovation technology from abroad as your local economy, you're taking these innovations and you're feeding the demand with them. Maybe it's vehicles, or maybe it was those engine controller units we were talking about. You place them into the engine and now the car is off and running. But the question is, did your economy start learning about engine control units when they did that? I would argue no, and not just that. We know that a lot of countries adopt as their manufacturing strategies as their innovation and capacity building strategies to take on manufacturing. Because there's something about the process of building. You always face problems, you always face challenges. When you have to build 100 units, 500,000, 10,000 units, even for another customer that's ordered from you abroad, you learn in that process. You learn about the challenges that come up, and that informs your ability to innovate as an economy. People in the organization, and over the years, they spin off and they go to other organizations, but there's this capacity that's been built, and they bring this knowledge and know-how with them. So if you just purchase a totally pre-assembled unit from abroad in volume, you're not learning. You're just applying and filling that need, filling that market need. But you're the Minister of Industry, remember now, and when you actually are building these products locally, whether it's the electronics, was it the ECU, was it the speed governor, was it the pump, was it irrigation controllers, was it name your product and innovation. When you're able to build those locally, you're actually building this capacity, this know-how, this knowledge, these skill sets. And now you're increasing the value of the economy, its ability to do more things, to solve problems locally. Maybe you can even start solving some fresh problems for those who have some markets abroad that need your innovation to support them. So that's the macro level. It matters less to you as the individual entrepreneur today, but it matters at the macro scale. And I think it helps to think of that as a guiding light at a collective scale to look at why one might need to build innovative technologies like IoT and whatnot locally.